My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, I'm Liza Roman, and my quote for today is Maya Angelou, and it is, "A leader sees greatness in other people. He nor she can be much of a leader if all she sees is herself."
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's episode 143. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/143. Before we jump into today's interview, I wanted to let you know a little bit about this episode's sponsor. Are you stressed about holiday gifting? Don't be. With Loop and Tie, giving great gifts is simple. Here's how it works. You choose a curated collection of stylish, artisan-made gifts at prices from $10 to $500 per gift. Then your recipients get to choose their own gift from the collection that you send. Go to loopandtie.com and use promo code Leader Assistant. That's all caps, 2 words, Leader Assistant, to get 20% off. And yes, they do ship internationally, so visit loopandtie.com and use the code Leader Assistant for 20% off. All right, one more quick note before we jump into the interview. We had a little bit of sound technical issues. Microphones weren't exactly sounding right, and I had my wrong microphone on at first, and I switched to a different one. So thanks for your patience. It's a great conversation with Liza, and you'll love what she has to say. Thanks again for your patience with the technical difficulties. Hey friends, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant Podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm very excited to be speaking with Liza Roman. Liza is the executive assistant to the executive director / CEO at Sanctuary for Families, and I believe that's in New York. Is that right, Liza?
Yes, it is. It's in New York. It's on Wall Street.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your career, how you ended up in the executive assistant profession, and then, how long have you been in this world?
I have been in the world of the EAs for about 30 years, give or take. I will say that from when I started as an executive assistant 30 years ago till now, a lot of things have changed. The cultures, the different cultures throughout the last 30 years have changed so much. What I've experienced over the years, as I look back now in retrospect, I have learned so much and I've experienced so much, and on many different levels. My current position is working for a nonprofit, which is new to me because I've never worked for a nonprofit before. So normally I've worked in the private sector for the last, 25 years or so. Challenges, there have been many challenges. I have experienced sexual harassment. I have experienced executives who have been unfaithful to their wives. I have worked with an executive who got very sick on me in Barcelona, and I got a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, and literally my whole world was kind of turned upside down at 2 in the morning with a 3-year-old sleeping next to me. So it was like running around like a chicken with no head. So, and I think that's usually the hat that we wear as executive assistants. There's always something to do. You never have enough time in the day, and we always have to be ready for the surprises. Mm-hmm. So,
So we just need a hat that is a headless chicken, is what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
So what's been your favorite part over these last 20, 30 years? What's been your favorite part about the role?
You know what? When I've coordinated events and I get my teams together, And we do either offsite team buildings, or I've coordinated events where I've had, like when I worked in the music industry, that I would coordinate venues, production venues with artists and writers, composers, and just to see like the fruits of my labor, because up until the point when the event happens, like it takes you months to build, and to put these events together. And then when you see them on stage, or you see your team, enjoying the time and really being productive and getting along, that makes me feel happy. And I love it when my teams come back to me and they're like, Liza, this was so great. You did such a great job. And I'm like, no, thank you. This was, it was really wonderful. It was really fun putting it together. For some people, it can be a very daunting task. For me, over the years, I've really, really enjoyed, doing things like that, doing events and things of that nature.
Nice. Yeah, it's very rewarding when it finally, gets.
Well, you know what? When I worked at Warner, I will tell you that one of my artists, which is his name is Juanes, after I left Warner, when I came back to New York from Miami, he was an award-winning artist. So, but when I was working at Warner, he was just part of one of our composers, and he was part of a band, and he was up and coming. So it was nice to see him from when he was starting to when I moved to New York, and then I saw him win a Grammy. And so that was really cool. So Wow. It's nice to see how people grow and, the success that they have, and, and how they're tapped in the industry, because he was already a musician. Once he started composing, and his music is very folkloric, it's also political. He really, really blew up. So that was really fun to see, and having worked with him.
Yeah, I love seeing my executives succeed, and just knowing that I played a little part in that. It's very rewarding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So, okay, well, let's flip to the other side. What was what has been, and maybe even continues to be, your least favorite part about being an assistant?
I will say that, and it's sad to even say it, but the sexual harassment. That till this day, that even after 30 years of working in the industry as an EA, I still come across it. I went to a position, I was laid off from my job at 9 West. I was there for 9 years. And I went and I took a position the following year. I got laid off in August, and in January of the following year, I started a position with a chairman. Now, this chairman wanted me to work till 8 o'clock at night. Mind you, when I was on the interview, I told him, I said, I'm a single mother, so, I would like to be able to leave at least at a decent time where I can get home, because I have a child at home. Well, by the end of the week, I ended up, I made the decision that this wasn't going to work, because he wanted to keep me there not only till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And I was like, you know what? After all these years of working as an EA, if an executive has to work till that many hours, till that late at night, then you don't have it together. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was like, I have a family. I need a life-work balance in some sort of way, even as an EA. And I've worked for many executives where I've worked till 7 o'clock and still been able to get home and still been able to do, my work and my home life. And at the end of the week, when I told him that, for as much as I really liked working with him, that unfortunately I could not stay because I could not stay so late. He proceeded to tell me about how very, very sexy I was.
Wow.
And that just nearly it just blew me out of the water. And I was like, then it was the right thing for me to do, to just, I guess my spidey senses, my hairs were standing on end, where I was like, I knew something wasn't right. So yeah, just the fact that I've had to deal with the sexual harassment, even now that I'm older and that it's been 30 years, and that this culture now, thank God, we have the hashtag #MeToos, where, people are speaking up, and this is not something that, back in the 80s, When I first started as an assistant, these things were swept under the rug. And I had two incidents in the 90s where I had two people who committed sexual harassment against me and who were also let go because, I spoke up. But it wasn't without, fear on my part to say what I needed to say, but the fact of the backlash that I was going to get. So that's been a real big learning experience. You have to look, at how you work together with an executive and what is not okay and what crosses the line. So that's been one of my least favorite things that has happened to me as an EA.
Well, I'm so sorry that you've had to experience that throughout your career. I'm sure there are others listening who have also had experience with sexual harassment, unfortunately, in the workplace. What would you say to those who are maybe in the middle of a situation where they're maybe afraid to speak up or don't know how to speak up? Where can they go? Where should they turn? What do you recommend?
For me, like the two other people who sexually harassed me back in the 90s, they weren't my bosses, but I had a good enough relationship with my boss that I was able to speak to them and tell them this happened and this needs to stop right now. And I feel that you know what, no matter how hard you think it is, no matter what the backlash is going to be, don't let anybody ever like make you feel like you're some object, like you're some, like you don't matter. It just, that they can do whatever they want with you. Don't ever allow that. You have to speak up for as hard as it is. And when I was in my 20s, it was really hard, but I still did it. And I not only spoke out, but I yelled. I went into my boss's office and I yelled at him. And I said, with all due respect, but you got to hear this. And this is not going to happen again. And if I have to call the police, I will call the police. And so I found that between the two times that it happened, after the first time it happened, I became more brave. When the second time it happened, I became more vocal. And it was like, no, this is not okay. And you cannot do this. And it's funny because we're not living in the world of the Mad Men. I don't know if you've seen the show Mad Men with, So we're not living in that world anymore of the 1950s and 60s where people are smoking and drinking in the office and everything. And they're treating the executive assistants or the secretaries, like they're just objects, So you have to speak up no matter how hard it is. Find somebody that you can trust, and hopefully it's your boss, that you have a good relationship with your boss and you can tell them what's going on. And if it is the boss that's doing it, you go above their head and and now what's funny is that now, like, people will go into an office and start recording off their iPhones. People will record things. People will, they find ways to get proof. So don't ever stay shut. Open up your mouth and say what you got to say. Don't ever let anybody treat you like you're not worthy of the respect that you deserve, especially because we are EAs and we're constantly being put in the front lines.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Thank you for sharing from your own experience and encouraging others who are going through the same things. Yeah. What about you had mentioned to me when you reached out on LinkedIn about a couple of other things like ageism, discrimination. You've been in the industry for a long time. How do you combat with, do people treat you differently because you're
I find that
of your
now
age,
Yeah, I find that now, when I was younger, as an EA, people they would speak down to me. And because they saw that I was young and they thought that I was inexperienced and I didn't know what I was doing. Mind you, I was setting up all kinds of venues, dealing with all kinds of, high-level executives, chairmen of huge companies. And, you have to, you learn over the years, you stand your ground, where now I feel like with all these years of experience, I have a voice to say, you know what, I've learned this, I know that. And don't be mistaken that because of my age, I don't know something. Now that I'm older, it's like, oh, well, you're too old and you just don't understand the culture of today. So now it's kind of switched around, And I'm
Always
like
something,
going,
right?
it's always something, like you never win. Exactly. And I'll be honest, like I don't do social media. I don't care for social media. However, I did, because I'm a sociology major. I did do this thing on Instagram called "Tell Me Your Shoe" because I love shoes, and I worked in the shoe industry for 9 years, where people can express their experiences through their shoes. You don't know anybody else's life until you walk a few miles in their shoes, so to speak. But yeah, the ageism has always been a factor. That when I was younger, they treat you like you don't know anything, and now that I'm older, they still treat me like I don't know anything because I'm not 20 years old anymore. So I don't know. I feel like I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. But you kind of go roll with the punches, and you just always, you always put your best foot forward, and you act professional, and you treat people with respect, regardless of how they come across to you. Because when you're representing an executive, you are representing, you're representing them, you're representing the company. So you always have to keep that professional demeanor, regardless of how people come at you.
Yeah. So how do you maintain confidence when people say things like that, or you face these challenges from, how do you keep your confidence up?
You know what? I think of all the years of the support that I've given to my executives, the things that I've learned. And you know what? I don't let anything bring me down. I walk with my head held high. I shake people's hands and I look them in the eye. And when people want to start with the whole thing of, well, you don't understand, you know what? I just let them talk. And I don't sit there and engage. Because I find that, when I come across it, they don't get it. They don't understand, because they're only thinking about their culture and for their age. For me, you'll always be professional, no matter what, even when you don't like what they're saying.
So I love how, speaking of confidence, you reached out to me and initially on LinkedIn, and you said, I've been doing this for a long time, and I have a lot of stories and experiences. And you just kind of put yourself out there and said, will you have me on the podcast?
Yeah.
What drove you to do that? Like, why did you reach out?
You know what? Again, I guess it was nice to see your posts on LinkedIn, and I found them interesting. And just reading other people's other executive assistants' thoughts and posts, and I was like, you know what? I really have something to say. I've been doing what I do for so many years. I have so many stories, and I don't know. It was just like a moment of like, you know what? I'm going to reach out and, let's throw caution to the wind. And I did. And when I saw your reply, I was like, oh, wow, this is so cool. You actually wrote back. So thank you. Thank you for writing back and for, letting me participate.
Well, and thank you for throwing caution to the wind and reaching out. I am a strong believer that everyone has a story to tell and a story worth sharing. And anybody listening, if you're listening to this episode right now and you're thinking, well, you know what, I guess I do have some thoughts and tips and stories to
Yeah.
share as well with the EA community, I would, reach out to me, and I'd love to have you on the show as well.
Well, I have another story.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. I want to hear some more stories.
Okay, so I have another story. So it's 2:00 in the morning, and I'm sleeping with my son, and I get a call from my boss. He was in Barcelona. He was on a trip through Europe that I had sent him with his designers and his merchandising people. Like he was like with four or five other people. And so he calls me at 2 a.m. He's like, I'm sick and I can't breathe. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? Are you okay? And he's like, I can't breathe. I feel like I'm having an asthma attack and I'm sending everybody ahead. They're going to London and I need to go home. I need you to change the entire trip for me. So I says, okay. He goes, I need you to call Ed, his partner, and let him know what's going on. He goes, I'm kind of crazed right now, just trying to figure out what to do, if I'm going to the hospital or what. I'm in a wheelchair right now. So I'm like, okay, calm down. Don't worry about it. I said, I got you. So we hang up. I call his partner and let him know what's going on. We discuss, calling the doctor, making appointments for when he comes home, the flights. So I called my American Express travel team, and they have after-hour numbers that you can call. So I called them and let them know what was going on and that I needed a flight out the next morning. Not the next morning because it was 2 o'clock in the morning here, so it was like 8 o'clock in the morning over there. So he was going to spend the night, and then the following morning he was going to leave. So I had to rearrange the whole flights. Then I had to, get the cars, get a car to get to his partner to take him to go to the airport, to pick him up, to then take him to the doctor, make appointments with the doctor, and also get him a hotel that was close to the airport in Barcelona. So like that, he didn't have to travel far once he got back from the hospital. So I learned in this whole process, and I took this experience with me to my other positions afterwards, where I sit down with my executive. When I first start with my executive, I need the name of your wife, the name of your partner, the name of your children. I need cell phone numbers. God forbid, in case of an emergency, you never know what can happen. I need to make sure that I have, and I keep it in a file that's protected with a password that only I know, with all their information, be it flights, personal credit cards, family names, family telephone numbers, things of that nature. Because he really scared me because he got really, really sick. And so when he came home, it ended up that he had an upper respiratory infection that kind of triggered his asthma. And so he just wasn't well. So, with every executive from then forward, I sit down and it's like, okay, let's do the rundown on, and I explained to them, I actually even explained this story to them of what happened and why it's important for me to have all this information in case of an emergency. So these are the little things that you do with your executives.
Wow. Yeah, that's
to save them and help them.
Yeah, that's definitely not something you want to get in the middle of the night.
Well, the thing is also because, thank God, I speak fluent Spanish. It was my first language. So in Barcelona, they normally speak Catalan, but they can understand the Spanish. So I was able to speak to people over there who had them, people at the airport, and I was able to talk to them and tell them, listen, this is what we need to do. This is where you need to take them. This is, and it was great because I was able to communicate with them. Wow. And get him from point A to point B to point C. If I didn't speak the language, it would have been a little more difficult.
Wow. So in Spanish, how would you say executive assistants are leaders in the workplace?
Okay, so asistentes ejecutivas son gerentes en el sitio del trabajo.
Very nice. Awesome. I love it. I just, I can barely speak English, so anytime I'm talking with somebody that speaks another language, I'm like, I want to hear hear something.
I gotta tell you, it's really worked. I mean, it's been great, that I can speak the language and that I can read it and write it. But I will also say that I feel like I've been discriminated against in the workplace because I'm Hispanic and I am a woman of color. I am Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican Italian, and I've noticed that over the years, like when I could have been paid more, when other assistants were paid more, I wasn't. I was told by an HR person, you can't work there because you have a child. So when I tell you, like, I've experienced a plethora of things, I've experienced a lot.
Wow. Well,
and it's really because when you're a parent, you're a parent. You shouldn't be, ousted just because you have a child or a family at home.
Yeah.
But there are people who just don't care, and there are companies that just want what they want. And it's very unfortunate because they'll miss out on really good talent and people who are good at what they do just because, we want this person to work till 10 o'clock at night, so they can't have any kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, Liza, I know you kind of put yourself out there, reached out to me, and I'm so glad you did. It's been fun chatting with you and hearing some of your stories, and I'm really just encouraged by the energy and confidence that you exude. And I know you've been through a lot of challenges throughout your career and life, and I appreciate you just kind of pushing through and staying positive and confident. It just comes out even on this audio podcast interview. It just really comes through. And so thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy.
Yeah.
It was fun sharing the stories.
Yeah. Is there any way, or if you want, any way people can reach out and connect with you and say hi?
Sure. They can find me on either LinkedIn, or you can share my email address with them if you like.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll definitely link to your LinkedIn in the show notes. And then, if people want to reach out, they can reach out to me and I can pass them on to you. And thanks again. Hope you have a great...
have to reach out to me. I have more stories.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2 someday.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Liza for being on the show. It was a great conversation. Check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/143. And don't forget to check out our sponsor for this episode, loopandtie.com. Use the code LEADERASSISTANT, all caps, 2 words, LEADERASSISTANT, at loopandtie.com for 20% off their holiday gifting. And we will talk to you soon.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com.